In the remote highlands of southeastern Turkey, beneath the weight of 11,000 years of silence, a curious sequence of symbols carved into stone stands defiant against time. Göbekli Tepe, often hailed as the world's oldest known temple, is littered with enigmatic T-shaped pillars and animal reliefs. But in 2018, a team of epigraphers identified something even more disturbing. A repeating series of glyphs, not animal, not script, but something else entirely. The shapes were geometric, yet oddly alive, almost as if the symbols were watching. Across the world, in the jungle-choked ruins of La Danta in Guatemala that same year, a drone-mount scanner revealed something nearly identical carved into a basalt slab. Identical markings, spaced in the same haunting rhythm. No known language, no decipherable pattern, just raw resonance. These weren't coincidences. These were echoes. The first academic to notice the anomaly was Dr. Adrian Vellum, a reclusive symbologist from the University of Tübingen. Vellum had dedicated his life to tracing cross-cultural mythic patterns, but nothing in his decades of research prepared him for what he discovered inside the Vatican's classified codices. In 1973, a Jesuit archivist named Father Lucien Ferenz had smuggled a photographic facsimile of an unnamed folio out of the Vatican's Archivum Secretum. The folio bore no title, author, or language known to man. It contained only symbol after symbol, mirrored with unsettling precision in temples, caves, and tombs separated by oceans and epochs. Vellum cross-referenced Ferenz's images with archaeological records, and realized with rising dread that the same symbols had been documented at sites ranging from the hypogeme of Halsaflieni in Malta to the subterranean tunnels of Derinkuyu in Anatolia. They even appeared crudely etched on a copper plate recovered from a peat bog in Denmark, dating to the Nordic Bronze Age. How could the same cryptic markings appear in civilizations that never contacted each other? How could they predate known writing systems yet seem intentional? Worse yet, they weren't static. Every few decades, new artifacts were unearthed, each bearing the same glyphs in new configurations, as though the manuscript was continuing itself through the hands of the forgotten. Researchers began calling it the Manuscript of Echoes, a term coined by Vellum to reflect its eerie persistence across space and time. But he never published his findings. In 2019, his home in Baden-Württemberg was found abandoned, the power still on, his notebooks open, and a single phrase scrawled across the walls in charcoal. It finished a sentence in my dream. His disappearance was the first in a pattern that would quietly escalate. 3 months later, an Australian anthropologist named Leah Tanzer vanished while studying petroglyphs in Arnhem Land. A week before her disappearance, she sent her colleague a fragment of her field journal. In it, she described seeing symbols etched into the rock that shifted positions overnight. She thought it was a prank, until she dreamt of a voice repeating one of the glyphs in a language she understood but could not translate. The same year, British museum staff discovered something curious. A Mesopotamian cylinder seal in storage, long considered a forgery, had been misclassified. A reanalysis revealed not only that the seal was authentic, but that its engravings matched the so-called echo symbols found in sites half a world away. But it wasn't just stone. Hidden in plain sight, identical markings were found in ancient Chinese silk scrolls, early Andean textile patterns, even musical notations from the oracle bone period. Always the same motifs, always repeating, but never in the same arrangement. To explain the language, it was a syntax of recursion, a grammar of echoes. Enter the Orcus Codex. In 2020, during renovations at a burned-out library in Palermo, Sicily, restorers uncovered a sealed chamber behind a collapsed wall. Inside was a book bound in an unknown hide, its pages composed of thin, silvery reeds. Impossible to identify. On every page, the same glyphs, meticulously inscribed in concentric circles, interlocking spirals and fractured lattices. Linguists, cryptologists, and even AI systems failed to crack its code, not because it was too complex, but because it had no key. The glyphs responded differently depending on who was looking at them. Every observer saw a different pattern. The codex refused to be understood, but it wanted to be seen. Then came the dreams. Within a year, those who handled the Orcus Codex began reporting near-identical nocturnal visions. A tall figure draped in mirrored robes, standing before a monolith covered in light. The symbols pulsed. Some reported auditory hallucinations. Others claimed that fragments of ancient languages, Sumerian, Nahuatl, Proto-Elamite, began surfacing in their everyday speech without understanding them. Dr. Samion Nwosu, a cognitive historian from Lagos University, published a brief paper proposing that the Manuscript of Echoes was not created by man, but by an idea that existed before writing. "We are not reading symbols," he wrote. "We are witnessing the evolution of a non-human memory, passed through us like a virus, but older, much older." He died 3 days later. His apartment was found covered in chalk markings, not random, not chaotic. A sentence, spelled in symbols, still in progress. What if the manuscript wasn't merely documenting knowledge, but accumulating it? What if each new symbol recorded not information but recognition? A mark of a human mind having glimpsed something it was never meant to see. Some believe the manuscript is a message from an ancient intelligence. Others think it's a sentient code, an artifact of the universe's consciousness, spilled into human thought, like an echo from the first vibration. But one thing is certain, the symbols are spreading. Unexplained carvings matching the manuscript have begun to appear in modern cities, scratched into subway tunnels in Prague, burned into remote trees in the taiga, traced in the condensation on skyscraper windows. It's as if the manuscript has begun to write itself again, and someone or something is helping it finish the sentence. But what happens when it does? It begins in the blood, so claim the few who have studied the Apocryphon tablets, unearthed in the late 1990s from a collapsed ziggurat near the Persian Gulf. These inscribed black shale fragments, dismissed at first as Sumerian Apocrypha, contain a unique peculiarity. Embedded within the cuneiform are minute glyphs, too small for the naked eye, identical in shape to the echo symbols. At first, this was assumed to be mere erosion or pareidolia. Then, under magnification, they were found not only to match the Orcus Codex, but to be placed with surgical precision, aligned to bloodlines, names, and genealogies. A pattern began to emerge. Every inscription corresponded to a specific family line, many of whom reported dreams of impossible languages, compulsive drawing, or a sense of remembering something they never learned. The manuscript, it seemed, was not confined to stone. It was written into lineage. In Cairo, a private collector named Karim Zubair, known for his obsessions with lost scriptures, donated a small relic to an anonymous archive in Luxor before vanishing. The object was a bronze medallion, no larger than a coin. But when exposed to light filtered through papyrus, a lattice of symbols appeared across its surface, ones that pulsed and rearranged depending on the angle viewed. Curators began to whisper of reactive ink, but no modern technique could replicate it. The medallion, when placed near ancient scrolls, caused them to bleed ink. Script would change subtly overnight, small shifts in phrasing, the sudden emergence of new symbols, always in the margins. One night, a Coptic monk, assisting in translation, described a disturbing phenomenon. A word that had not been present the night before had followed him into a dream, repeating endlessly in a voice that sounded like breaking glass underwater. The word had no known meaning. But upon waking, he drew it in ink, and it matched one found at Göbekli Tepe. By 2022, a group of independent researchers had begun connecting the symbols not by region, but by time signature. They proposed a terrifying theory. The symbols appear not randomly, but rhythmically, aligning with periods of civilizational disruption. Floods, earthquakes, plagues, collapses. In each instance, new forms of the manuscript emerged. carvings in wood during the Younger Dryas, crude etchings during the Bronze Age collapse. And again, now on digital surfaces. A corrupted file sent to an archivist at the Bodleian Library contained a string of unreadable code, but when rendered into audio, the waveforms formed glyphs. Echo symbols in sound. Was the manuscript adapting? Was it learning new media? The unsettling answer was this: it had never been static. It had always mirrored the medium of its era. In the age of stone, it carved. In the age of ink, it bled. And now, in the age of data, it listens. That same year, a linguist named Dr. Raúl Fernández made a radical discovery while working in the Peruvian Andes. In a chamber beneath the ruins of Chavín de Huántar, he uncovered a set of resonant stone bowls. When struck in a precise sequence, they emitted a tonal pattern, a musical glyph, if such a thing exists. Using spectrographic software, Fernández mapped the audio pulses into a visual pattern. It was the manuscript, or rather a part of it. What he found next shook him to the core. The tones from the Chavín bowls matched, note for note, the pitch intervals found in the hypogeum of Halsaflieni, a Neolithic site separated by more than 10,000 kilometers and over 6,000 years. It wasn't just symbols. The manuscript was in sound. And when Fernández broadcast the full sequence across a sound chamber, one of his colleagues went into a trance-like state, repeating a phrase in an unknown language. Upon transcription, it matched a line from a lost Babylonian hymn, and call the echo is to awaken the witness. Increasingly, evidence pointed to a terrifying possibility. The Manuscript of Echoes was not written by civilization. It was written through them. From Anatolia to Tiahuanaco, from Mohenjo-Daro to Cahokia, civilizations blossomed as if in response to its emergence, only to vanish once its glyphs reached saturation. Archaeologist Julian Mayer noted a trend. Sites where the manuscript reached completion, based on known symbols and their arrangements, experienced sudden, irreversible collapse. No explanation, no survivors, only silence. But now, for the first time, the symbols were reappearing simultaneously across the globe. A convergence. A completion. In northern Greenland, a melting glacier revealed a set of megaliths previously hidden under the ice. Etched into the stone, preserved perfectly by the cold, were the oldest known glyphs of the manuscript. When cross-referenced with the Orcus Codex, they fit precisely into the missing centerfold, pages previously thought to be left blank. Only they weren't blank. They were waiting. When the two were aligned, Orcus Codex and Greenland stone, the manuscript formed a perfect spiral 12 glyphs deep, rotating inward to a single voided symbol never seen before. Scholars dubbed it the null mark. It had no counterpart in any other artifact. And days after its discovery, every known reproduction of the Orcus Codex corrupted, digitally and physically. Text dissolved, pages warped, files vanished, like it had sensed the wrong eyes. One curator who had viewed the composite spiral claimed the symbol moved when unobserved. A week later, he walked into the sea. What if the manuscript is not a message to be deciphered, but a mechanism to activate something dormant within the human mind? What if civilizations didn't create the glyphs, but inherited them from something far older? A resonance buried deep in the human condition, a memory from before history, before time itself. Some propose the manuscript is not terrestrial, that it is the residue of contact, something non-human attempting to preserve knowledge not in books but in blood, sound, architecture, and dream. It writes itself across what we build because it cannot speak in our terms. But what is it trying to say? And what happens when the last glyph is written? Because somewhere, beneath the Antarctic ice shelf, in a chamber untouched by light, ground-penetrating radar has found something impossible. A spiral of stone. A perfect match to the manuscript. And at its center, the null mark. Breathing. Watching. When the Antarctic research team first intercepted the sonar return, they assumed it was a collapsed cavern or an unusually symmetrical glacial formation. But as the scans resolved, detail by impossible detail, what emerged was not natural. It was precise. A subterranean spiral, 13 concentric layers, geometrically perfect. And at the spiral's nucleus, a stone monolith over 20 meters tall, carved with a symbol that appeared in no known language, yet matched the exact proportions of the null mark found in the Orcus Codex. The closer one looked, the less sense the data made. The surrounding strata dated to over 500,000 years old, long before anatomically modern humans walked the earth. The stone shouldn't be there, and yet there it was. Within days of the discovery, 3 researchers on the Antarctic team began reporting auditory hallucinations. At first, low tones, like the drone of wind across a flute, then whispers, then phrases. But not in English, or any known tongue. They wrote phonetically what they heard, and when the pages were laid side by side, something chilling emerged. The exact pattern of echo glyphs found in the Göbekli Tepe ring. The so-called first sequence. The manuscript wasn't being read. It was being received. While satellite images of the Antarctic spiral were swiftly classified, a digital copy was leaked to a private server in Prague. There, an independent cryptographer named Elias Cord began reconstructing the spiral's layout using comparative pattern analysis from ancient sacred geometry. His conclusion was disturbing. The spiral was not just symbolic. It was temporal. Each coil corresponded to a specific epoch in human development, beginning with the lower Paleolithic and spiraling inward toward the present day. But the center, the null mark, represented a period yet to come, a moment that had not arrived. Or perhaps a moment that arrives again and again, like a loop, like a signal. Elsewhere in the shadow of the Hindu Kush, a shepherd unearthed a slab of polished obsidian etched with symbols glowing faintly in moonlight. Scientists determined it was an artificial crystal specifically encoded with magnetic resonance. When exposed to frequency pulses matching those in the Chavin bowls, the symbols rearranged dynamically. For the first time, a moving manuscript had been found. The slab revealed 12 glyph sequences. 11 matched prior records. The 12th, previously unknown, contained a striking image. Not a symbol, but a figure. A robed entity, faceless, crowned with concentric rings. Its outstretched hand pointed toward a glyph shaped like an open eye. Beneath it, in micro-inscription, the scribe without tongue. This name was not new. It had appeared in medieval marginalia from Renleb Chateau, in Aztec murals long thought to be depictions of gods, in Inuit oral legends of the whisperer beneath ice. And always it was connected to the same core function, the one who remembers what was never said. A being that does not speak but transmits, not a creator but a translator between realities, a presence known not by shape but by resonance. Those who encounter the glyphs speak of a presence just outside vision, a shadow that isn't cast, a silence that listens. As these discoveries mounted, something more disturbing began to happen. Artifacts previously dormant began to activate. Ancient stelae in Ethiopia, previously silent, began emitting low-frequency tones. A petroglyph cave in Sulawesi, once static, was found changed. Glyphs that had been stable for decades had moved. And in a secure facility in Italy housing the fragments of the lapis obscura, an ancient stone codex whose inscriptions had never been deciphered, a new line of glyphs emerged across its surface overnight. They were not carved, they were burned in. When translated using the cross index from the Orcus Codex, they formed a message. The final sentence begins with silence. But what is the sentence? Some believe the manuscript is not meant to be read but completed, that each symbol written in our world is part of a larger mechanism, one designed to reset history, or perhaps to awaken whatever placed it here. A language that doesn't just describe reality, but rewrites it. One chilling case lends weight to this idea. In 2007, a young boy in Mongolia began compulsively drawing a spiral symbol on every surface he encountered. No one recognized it until a visiting ethnolinguist saw the drawing and froze. It was the exact glyph buried beneath the null mark in the Antarctic spiral. The boy had never traveled, had never seen any ancient symbol. When asked where he had seen it, he responded simply, "The sleeping book in the sky showed me." He pointed upward, not at the sun, but at a blank stretch of sky where nothing was visible. Later, when satellite images of that region were reviewed for unrelated research, analysts noted an atmospheric anomaly, a perfect circular disruption in the ionosphere, subtle but persistent. Like an echo, as research expanded, a new theory emerged, one that terrified even hardened skeptics. What if the manuscript isn't a message for humanity? What if it's a test? A recursive sequence designed to determine whether a civilization is ready or not. Every symbol decoded is a door opened, every sequence mapped is a threshold crossed, and if crossed prematurely, something wakes up. This would explain the collapses. Not failure, containment. Deep within a Vatican vault, long sealed, a book surfaced. Bound in an unknown hide, inked in a pigment with no earthly match, its pages did not appear to age. But more disturbingly, when held near any artifact with echo glyphs, the book's margins bled black and formed new writing. Scholars named it Il Libro Silenzioso, the silent book. Only one phrase remained stable across all exposures. We were warned. As the Antarctic site prepares for excavation, seismic activity has begun to increase. Low tremors, pulses timed to the symbol sequence in the Orcus Codex, equipment malfunctions, audio glitches, and last night, a new spiral formed in the snow, vast and flawless, formed without footprints. It was not there at dusk. And at its center, a symbol, no, is unrecorded, translated. There is something beneath the ice. It is not waiting to be found. It is waiting for something else. To finish the sentence. For millennia, the symbols had slept beneath stone, ice, and myth, but now, as if stirred by unseen frequencies, they were waking. And they were responding. In the ruins of Mohenjo-Daro, a drone sweep revealed new engravings on what was previously a smooth granite platform. The markings were unmistakable. The tri-radial spiral known as the pulse sign, found only twice before, once on the walls of a submerged temple off the coast of Yonaguni, and once etched into the base of a petrified tree in Namibia. In all three sites, the arrangement was precise, 13 outer glyphs orbiting the central spiral. But here a 14th glyph had appeared, one never documented in any manuscript or artifact. Its form, a perfect circle split by a horizontal line, a universal symbol across cultures, the horizon. Yet within the symbol, microfractures glinted with embedded crystalline fragments, tiny and artificial. Under electron scanning, they revealed a message only visible at extreme magnification. 4 words, no language yet instantly understood. It will rise again. At CERN, in a highly secure wing rarely mentioned in public briefings, particle physicists conducting low-frequency resonance mapping encountered a data anomaly that mirrored the spiral from Antarctica. At first it was dismissed as machine error. Then the anomaly began to predict their experiments. Each time the collider fired, the glyph patterns would rearrange, foretelling results before they occurred. To test the theory, a researcher encoded one of the unknown manuscript sequences into the system as a variable input. The collider shut itself down. No malfunction, no failure. A voluntary shutdown, as if something in the system had recognized the signal and responded by refusing to proceed. Their internal report classified the glyph as a control key. And across the world, similar reports emerged. In Cairo, a merchant handling a set of rare scrolls began reciting phrases in a dead Sumerian dialect, though he had no formal education and no known exposure to the language. In Santiago, Chile, an entire mural painted on the side of a cathedral changed overnight, its abstract symbols replaced by a perfect map of the manuscript spiral. And in northern Greenland, a seismic listening station recorded subsonic vibrations forming rhythmic intervals. When transcribed into visual form, the pulses translated into a sentence. We are not its first voice. The pattern was clear, even if its meaning was not. The manuscript was no longer static. It was moving, and wherever it moved, change followed, not just in stone and glyph, but in mind. Psychologists began seeing patients across cultures reporting the same dream, an ancient city under a red sky where every building pulsed with light and each step triggered echoes in a language they had never heard, but always understood. In the dream, the city had no name, or rather, its name was the manuscript. Further studies revealed something even more disturbing. When layered, the known glyph sequences from Göbekli Tepe, the Lapis Obscura, the Codex Liminalis, and the Vatican fragments form not just a language, but a blueprint that resembled the design of the human brain. The spiral matched the structure of the hippocampus, the glyph constellations mirrored neural networks, and the null mark? It sat exactly where the pineal gland would be. The manuscript wasn't simply written for human minds. It was written within them. This redefined everything. What if the manuscript did not originate outside civilization, but was something seeded into us across ages, across genetic lines, across consciousness itself? A kind of mimetic artifact, a viral language, not just a message across time, but a mind that writes itself through others. As these theories spread in whispers through academic and occult circles alike, a darker possibility surfaced. What if the manuscript is not only a message? What if it's a trigger, a dormant code designed to activate under certain conditions, geological alignments, planetary resonances, or human thought thresholds? Every symbol decoded, every sequence replicated, every voice that speaks its words aloud amplifies the signal. All across the world, the signal continued to pulse. In a forest outside Yakutia, trees were found growing in spiraled formations, their bark etched with symbols matching those from Angkor Wat. In the Australian outback, an ancient songline performed by indigenous elders resulted in seismic anomalies that drew a perfect manuscript shape into the desert floor. And in the Nevada desert, a private satellite relay registered a burst of electromagnetic radiation from deep space. Its shape? The manuscript spiral, transmitted not from Earth, but to Earth. The implications were staggering. The manuscript might not be terrestrial at all. What if it came not from the past, but from somewhere else entirely, not a message from ancient civilization, but from an intelligence that spans civilizations, an intelligence that becomes those who read it? Cosmic operating system, a recursive intelligence that encodes itself into the myth, stones, dreams, and then waits. Patiently, silently, until enough voices recite its verses, until enough eyes draw its spire, until enough minds remember it together. In a monastery in Bhutan, a sealed chamber was opened after a series of synchronized dreams among the monks. Inside was a singular object, a mirror framed in obsidian. Etched into the glass, the spiral. But unlike the others, this spiral was reversed, coiling outward instead of in. And at the center, not a symbol, but a question, one spoken in every tongue though written in none. Will you finish what was begun? Something is aligning, beneath Antarctic ice, in the chambers of ancient cities, in the blood of those who dream of red skies and echoing towers. The manuscript is no longer hidden. It is writing itself faster now, across continents, across minds. And in the silence between transmissions, those who listen closely swear they can hear something. Not words, not symbols, but a presence, a thing aware, something that is waiting for the next sentence to be written. And somewhere unknown, unseen, a hand reaches for the pen.